Good evening, everyone. Happy New Year. All right, we will start the meeting at 7 o'clock p.m. And I'm going to do a roll call. Lorraine Hain. Angela Graham.
Not here.
Donald Atkinson.
Here.
Larry Akery.
Here.
Ed Perry.
Here.
Karen Kinlaw.
Here.
And myself here. Okay. We're going to do the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag
Hi, good evening. Magic is funner. I would like to kind of suggest maybe a city sign. Maybe not something as nice as what Pearland has, but Alvin's looks very simple. Our sign's falling down, and I'm really not sure who put that one out there. But I would like to see something that says, "Welcome to Manvel. We want you here." So that's what I'm suggesting. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Alrighty, next one. She's the only one, right? Okay. Good evening, sir. Would you like to say anything? Okay, thank you. Okay, regular agenda. Okay, our regular agenda. A discussion on extending utilities along Highway 6 and/or FM 1128 to attract, retain, and grow businesses and jobs in the city.
Hi,
Hi.
how are y'all doing? It's good to see y'all this year. We haven't seen you in a bit. I want to sort of take you back a little bit. A year or so ago, maybe a little bit more than that, there was the possibility of some development over on the south side of 6 near Cemetery for some small office kind of buildings. And one of the things that they came to the city and asked about was, you have any sewer? You have any wastewater? And unfortunately, the last manhole is right behind where Bamboo Walk used to be and where the library is on the west side of the C1 ditch. There isn't anything in the way of sewer from that east all the way to County Road 99, the other end of the city limits. And there have been a couple of sort of prospects that have come in and started asking about pieces of property on sort of the eastern side of town along Highway 6. There have even been a couple of up 1128 that were, I don't know what you'd call it, just tire kickers or whatever, I don't know that it was specifically. But the idea is, we come back to you about, what about the possibility of extending utilities further east? We haven't done any hard numbers or anything like that. The last time we kind of talked to you, we gave you an idea. The lift station behind City Hall is kind of a regional lift station. When we built that, it was about $800,000 or $900,000 just for the lift station, not for the several miles of pipe that you would have to include if we were going to put it over there somewhere on the east side of the C1 ditch or Cemetery somewhere and extend the lines eastward, however far we would want to go. Dan and I and Gilbert, we were kind of sitting around just kind of sort of chewing on this idea. Maybe there's a possibility of putting a lift station over there somewhere and then pumping that under the C1 ditch, which is the main problem, back towards this lift station over here. Because when we extended, and I don't remember if they were involved, was MEDC involved in going east on Large? I think you might have been. There's, right, right before the C1 ditch. I think it's an 8-inch line until you get back to 1128, and then it's like a 24-inch line because it collects the lift station over on Lewis and several other places. But the possibility exists, and we haven't talked to the engineers or anything like that, but the possibility of having a lift station pump it to this 24-inch line that goes into that lift station that pumps it back to the wastewater treatment plant. So we kind of wanted to have this discussion with y'all about that. The other part is the city right now is in the process of designing and then hiring a contractor to install both water and sewer extensions up 1128. The city has already extended water up to just north of where the police station is now, where the proposed new police station is going to be, just on the north side of that. Sewer is right at the north side of Terra Estates. But the design is going to go from there all the way up to almost the fire station, because the fire station is on the corner of Dogwood and 1128. The school district owns the piece of property just to the south of that, but directly across the street, there's a 5-acre piece of property that the city owns that we're planning on building the community services or public works building on. And extending the sewer up towards that, around Dogwood would catch both the police station and the community services building. So the idea is there may be some property between sort of where the sewer line ends now and Dogwood that might want to tie on. The city's funding that. But at some point in the future, there may be other commercial properties that want to go north. We've had some conversations with a potential developer who supposedly has 1,500 acres or 1,800 acres under contract off of Belcher and Oilfield back to the east of 1128, sort of generally north of Wolf Air Park, sort of that general area. We haven't seen anything. The gentleman was involved in another development on the backside of Rodeo Palms that went bankrupt. So it's not overly, yeah. So we'll take that with a grain of salt and see if anything ever comes out of that other than, a drawn map kind of thing. So, but the idea mainly is directed towards Highway 6. MEDC funded the extensions from Burger Barn all the way to 288. The first thing that tied onto that was Blue Water Lakes. The second thing that tied onto that was DeBello Lakes, both water and sewer. I think on Tuesday's agenda, we're going to have a request that the council accept the interconnect for the water line that goes under 288, the water plant in Manvel Town Center. And at the last meeting, they accepted the sort of the pipes that were in the ground in between the interconnect and the water plant. So because of the work that y'all did in funding that, the water plant that Mud 42 is building for the city should come online in the next month, maybe, depending on the council's acceptance of the infrastructure. They're already running it. They're already testing it. Nobody's tied onto it yet because the public infrastructure hasn't been accepted by the city yet. But because of the money that MEDC put forward, that line that goes all the way on the other side of 288 and connects in to that commercial development is there. We kind of talked about it and said it's going to be a while before anybody ties onto it. Blue Water Lakes was the first group. DeBello was later on, and now the good thing is that water plant becomes the city's, which means we have a second major brand new water plant to provide utilities for everybody that's on city utilities. So it was a forward-looking thought looking that way. Now that discussion might be to turn around and kind of look back to the east and say, is that something that the city and MEDC might want to partner on? So those are just kind of thoughts. Like I said, there isn't a project right now that says, if you build it, I'm going to come and put a commercial development or whatever on Highway 6. But the more and more activity that goes on in Manvel, the more likely that is that somebody does want to come over.
Sometimes infrastructure is what induces it to come.
Right. Do you want to talk a little bit?
Hi, I'm Jessica Rodriguez. I'm the Director of Development Services. I haven't interacted with some of you, or in a little period of time. So we do pre-development meetings, development meetings with city staff on a weekly basis. And what we've been seeing a lot is there's a lot of people that'll come in and maybe particularly interested in a piece of property, and it's always on the east side of the C1 ditch. Sometimes we get it where people are just sort of, poking around what I can do business there. And almost always we know the deal killer on any development taking place is because it's a sewer. It's the lack of, the water's there, it's the sewer just getting it across the ditch. Recently, we had a pre-development meeting that, these weren't people just started kicking the tires. They had some layouts put together. They were serious, and we as staff thought this is a legitimate business, something that would add value to the city. But being as though it was a family that was coming together to start this business, just not having the economics to do that, we thought, okay, this is probably a tipping point. Plus, you've got other development that's recently happened. Dollar General. Fortunately, Dollar General went on septic, but they've platted up other property with the Dollar General that's ready to start, I would say maybe plug and play go because drainage is figured out, but they too would have to be on septic. So plenty of times on the commercial side, we see it as it's probably a deal killer as far as, the economy growing with the businesses in the city. On the residential side, more or less, people like doing well in septic. It's not really necessarily a make or break when somebody's doing something there. However, extending utilities into, places where we do have some stuff, we do have some residentially zoned property on 1128. People may, tack on to water and sewer if it's there. But also, too, as we're talking on 1128, there's a lot of properties for sale. I drive 1128 every day. There are a lot of properties for sale. And I can tell you, we get them kind of here and there where somebody wants to do something. And usually they maybe have limitations that the property's maybe not quite big enough. But because you've got your, detention and mitigation to account for. And then if we've got to add a spray field on top of it, it's just not there, the amount of land to do anything with. So I wanted to, bring that to Kyle's attention and how maybe we could spur some sort of economic growth, which is a different juxtaposition for me because I'm always managing growth. But when you start kind of hearing the same conversation over again, you kind of got to bring it to everybody's attention that maybe it's time we have a conversation, because I feel like specifically going east on Highway 6, that's the only way we're going to see an expansion of that, any sort of commercial property on that corridor.
So with our finances being what they are from the EDC side, and I do remember all of these conversations and just kind of piling up about a lot of people coming up. We were always trying to partner with them. It just didn't come out. Does the EDC have the finances for that kind of partnering, considering what we've already obligated to the center on the other side?
That would probably be more towards Tammy, but I think that there is money that you do have.
restricted cash?
But then you have so that first line cash in the bank, and then the two lines underneath that restricted, that's the funds you've got right now, minus the December sales tax. Right now, it looks like your sales tax amounts that are coming in are ranging around anywhere from the high seventies to the mid-90s each month. So last month it was $88,863. There's always those 2 months in a year that I don't know what happens, but that amount's way over. I mean, it's like about 50,000 more than what you usually see for normal deposits. So just to give you an idea, take away that big restricted number, add those three smaller numbers that are highlighted together. That's what you've got in the bank, and you can guess you're getting about $80,000 a month. So I don't know what the total would be,
Yeah.
but I don't know what the debt payment would be on something for the amount you would be asking for.
Right.
So are we looking for debt or to partner with the city, like half comes with us, half comes from the city? So all of that's up in the air?
None of that has been discussed. It's more along the lines of, is the MEDC board interested in having that conversation? Just by looking at that, you have a $900,000 to $1 million outside of what's already committed towards the city center project. That lift station.
The gentleman at Mississippi gave us an estimate for the lift station. He wanted us to do the lift station for him,
Yeah.
600,000.
I
But
remember
that was
that.
a year ago.
Right. That lift station that behind City Hall was about $800,000. It's a regional lift station. It's very big, very deep, and can handle a lot of flow through it.
So just the lift I remember that. It was 500,000 to 600,000 just the lift station, not getting it there, not the pipes in the ground, not any of that.
It's just the collection point.
Yeah.
Because mainly what you have to do is you have to pump it underneath the C12, the C1 ditch. That's the big problem. But if you think about it, from the C1 ditch going back to the east, there's very little in the way of anything that you have to go under. When we went west from Burger Barn, you had to go under the Chocolate Bayou twice, the GCWA Canal, and then there's a drainage ditch down towards on the other side of Iowa Lane. So, and that was all done with gravity. It was just a very large pipe at a very shallow angle in order to get the flow to work, but it went under all of those things. If you design a lift station that's very deep, you can extend that gravity line out to the east probably as far as you need to, because if the wet well of that lift station is, I don't know, 20 feet deep or 24 feet deep, with a larger pipe, a 15-inch or a 20-inch pipe, you can go out at a very shallow angle and go a very long ways. From Burger Barn to 288 was about 8,000 feet. From the C1 ditch to County Road 99 is about 11,000 feet. And that was going in, not into a lift station, that was going into a manhole. And I don't remember exactly how deep that is, but obviously you would have the engineers design the size of and the depth of that lift station and account for how far it would need to go. The other part of that is that the design would be in such a way as you're gonna do it in phases, because you're gonna design a very large regional lift station and very little flow going into it for quite a while. It's not like this one where you have two other lift stations that are pumping into it right now. There would, at the moment it's put into play, there's nobody that's got a connection to it. But in the city's master wastewater plan, I think it's out in 2041, there is a line that goes from the wastewater treatment plant up in Sedona Lakes and follows Mustang Bayou all the way down to what is called the East Side Lift Station, which is over there around where Mustang Bayou and hits Highway 6. And that's 18 years from now. But that's the idea. It's going to collect everything from Sedona Lakes, all of that up in the oil field that's going to develop at some point, and it would bring it all down to Highway 6. You wouldn't build a multi-million gallon per day lift station in order to do that right now because you don't have the need. But you can design the thing so that it can be expanded. Extra pumps, extra pipes, larger pipes if you need to, at some point in the future when the need arises. You put in the lift station, foreseeable future, the sizes that you need. The size of the lift station, the wet well and everything is set from the beginning. It's just how much are you going to have flowing into it, how much are you going to have to pump out of it, and how far are you actually going to have to pump it. If you put the lift station right near C12 and you're really just pumping it, I don't know, 6 blocks, 4, 5, 6 blocks to a manhole that goes into this is vastly different than putting the lift station over at County Road 99 and pumping it 3 miles. So the design is going to be determined on where sort of the most efficient place to put that is. And truthfully, maybe somewhere in the middle, maybe somewhere more towards the sort of the C1 ditch area is more efficient, and you simply run gravity lines the other way. Because the collection system is easy if it's gravity, and they're going to flow into it, it's going to flow downstream, go into the lift station. It's the expense and the design comes in when you actually have to pump it out of that, pump it back towards the plant.
May I make another comment? So, I'm all about going big and going home. And so if it means that the design is to make it further out so we could start pushing it this way, so that we'd have more availability along Highway 6, which you were saying, to do it further out and design it backwards, is that the better bang for our buck? But what I'd like to see, because I'm thinking of the money, I'm thinking this is tying up quite a bit, of course, but a lot of risk, a lot of reward. I would like to see or consider that we need to advertise that we're doing this, because we need every commercial person who has been looking at us saying, hey, by the way, we're pulling the plug. We're starting here. Get on ground floor now, because if they start coming, perhaps those connections is where we start kind of partnering in, saying, okay, we've already started. We're going to need your help financing it, coming all the way through, since you're going to get in early. Does that sound something that we could do? Because I'm thinking of, again, committing this, let's just say right about now, and we're going to get more and more as we get bigger, but making sure that it's yielding quicker by advertising, saying, if we decided to go to the biggest, most capacity all the way down to us.
Yeah, obviously the engineers, if we were going to move forward, the engineers we'd sort of give them the parameters of, obviously we need to provide sewer from here to there, and then they would have to go through and design the size, the location, all of those specifics of what would be the best way and where in order to do that. One of the things I was just briefly looking at the city's parcel map. There is an unopened right-of-way that lines up. You know where the the deer processing thing? There is actually an unopened right-of-way just on the east side of that building, and it goes from Large and it goes all the way down to Jordan. It's one of those original Manvel town site laid out rights of way. If at some point in the future, when what we call the South Wastewater Treatment Plant, which is down at South Masters and Uzzle, when that gets built, what we may do is, instead of sending that flow to the central plant on Corporate, we may want to turn it around and send it south. And what we could do is we simply could go right down that right of way, underneath 6, underneath the C1 ditch, underneath the railroad tracks, all the way down to Jordan, go out Jordan to South Masters, and it isn't that much further down to where that plant is proposed to be built. So maybe that's a good place. And, again, I'm not an engineer. I never claim to be an engineer. I just look at maps and say, that might work. But there's an unopened right-of-way that could be used for that. So, again, if we move forward with sort of the design of that, the engineers are going to look at all of those variables of where does it go now, where might it go in the future, sort of the need over the next 5 years or 10 years or 20 years. what would be needed in sort of the phasing of the use of that facility.
Ideas, finance, look at the numbers and make sure you've got, you can pay it. So it's just staff needing to know if this is something you guys as a board would be interested in pursuing.
Since we've discussed it for the last year, I think we all pretty much have an agreement. Because we have discussed it, I think, almost at every meeting for the last year.
Highlight, a few highlights.
I think it would be prudent to do so.
Yeah, and I just wanted to put on the record that my interest is to get it used now, like get people interested in coming, because what we don't want is to throw some money and talk about it here, but it doesn't get out there to people who would want to come back and get on that system.
Definitely. But the other part of that is there probably would be customers if we extended it out, because there's a number of businesses that are out there that probably would want to do away with their septic system and their spray field.
They wanted to do that 10 years
Right.
ago.
So there probably are
wanted to
some
get
there.
rid of it.
And then, as Jessica said, there have been some interested discussions that kind of got hung up on that last thing of, well, there's no sewer over there. And, yeah, it's a ways out. You know, it did take a while for the utilities going west to actually be used, but it's now the backbone of everything along Highway 6. It's going to be used even more as the things start to build along there. I won't say that if we go in there and put it, you know, we're going to have, you know, $100,000 worth of utility revenues or you know, anything built the next day, but if we don't build it, we know that it's not going to happen. If we do build it, it probably will over time.
I think we also have to look at the fact that the more we delay it, the more it's going to cost later. So now we have the potential for the revenue to come in, and I am somewhat one of those, if you build it, they will come, if it's the right thing. So I think it's just prudent for our vision and to accomplish our mission. We really need to explore this.
I agree.
Yeah, okay, then what I'll do is I'll talk with Dan and Community Services and Development Services, and then we'll get back in touch probably with Friesen Nichols to see if they can give us an idea. They worked on the master water and master wastewater plans. They've done some of the background work, definitely for the wastewater expansions along there, and we'll bring you back something as soon as we can. I don't know when that time frame is, but I know that, you know, it's an interested project, and if we can get you something as quickly as we can, then we'll let you know that.
Okay.
Yay for vision.
Well, now we have B, update on board positions.
So on the front of your agendas, where you've got all your positions listed with the current board members, starting with number 4, Larry, Mr. Perry, Karen, and Robina. Those terms are up in March this year. Each of y'all, we've already advertised out for possible applicants. And each of you guys can also apply for being considered for a reappointment as well. It's not a shoo-in, but you can reapply. We've got the applications on the website, and I can email everybody the link to that if you're interested. If you're not at all interested, if you could let me know that as well. And then position number 2, Angela, she has resigned from the board. She emailed me this week. She has moved to League City, so she'll no longer be on the board. So that position will also be up come March.
Okay.
And if you know any friends or neighbors,
Yeah.
let them know.
Definitely.
Within 10 miles of the,
Yeah.
of the city limits. And we do have probably, goodness, maybe 6 applicants already that have shown interest from some within the city and some in Pomona, and outside the city as well, but within that 10-mile
10
radius.
miles. Yeah.
Is there any requirement that people need to attend, or is this the one where you could just show up and now you know what we're doing?
For EDC, there is no requirement. PD&Z, there is, and there's positions open on that board as well. And it's advertised very well to explain kind of what you guys do, what P&Z does, and what the requirements are. So everybody's directed to that page on the website so they can see what the requirements are.
Would we ever be like P, D, and Z? You know, certain requirements rather than open to anybody?
You
Or-
could, that's in their bylaws, because they had issues with people getting on the board and not coming to the meetings, because they met so every 2 weeks. And so they chose to put that in their bylaws so people knew that if they were gonna show up for 2 consecutive meetings, that just showed that they had an intent to truly take that serious and decide if they wanted to be on that board or not.
Okay.
We've never really run into that problem for EDC, but if we did,
Okay, just wanted to find out.
We were also talking about the possibility of moving the time
yes.
to
Earlier?
the other ones.
So the other boards are now meeting at 6 o'clock, and if there's workshops at 5. I kept this one at 7 because there had been no discussion with y'all on that. But that would be the other thing for the next meeting, if you guys are good, if everybody could come at 6 o'clock instead of 7 o'clock. So if anyone has a problem with that time, you can email me or just let me know. We're meeting quarterly, but there will be a meeting in March because that's when the new appointments
appointments.
would come in. And
Okay.
then hopefully the city would have an update at least in case you got new members on the board.
Okay. Okay, consent agenda. All righty, on to the consent agenda. All consent agenda items listed are considered routine by the MEDC and will be approved by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless an MEDC member so requests, in which event the item will be removed from the consent agenda and considered in sequence on the agenda. A, receive, approve the minutes to date. We have a motion? Oh, I mentioned both, I'm sorry. Receive, consider the treasurer's report to date.
I make a motion that we approve the consent agenda.
I second it.
All right. Treasurers? Vote for this, just, okay. Call for the vote, please. All, yay? Okay, all favor and all that? Okay, so moved. All right. And we're adjourned. 7:34. Okay.